This is Black Power Magic Hour. It's Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. My name is Messiah Rhodes.
And I'm Dr. Evil Genius. How is everybody doing tonight?
Yo, we are out here. It's the summer in the city. Hot down, summer in the city. Oh, dirty and gritty. It's all gritty out here in the summer. But, it's still election season for some reason, even though, we have two automaton candidates. But if Jesse, no, hold up, before Jesse played. So, that's what's going on. But every show, what I like to do is just reflect on Dr. Evil Genius and I's relationship and why we do the show in the first place. I like to do that every show just to remind people. So we go way back. We go so far back. The time of Nokia had keyboard cell phones and had their own gaming center. We go way back in the group home. So tell Dr. Evil Genius, just roaming the streets back in the day.
In terms of what context?
Oh, just us hanging out. Those times we even though we shift between hanging out with the Union Square breakers and dancers, and sometimes we hang out with the IT nerds. Sometimes we hang out with, we just hovered around different crowds together. But we, that's what I mean. A Union Square stories.
Yeah, it was nice. I didn't really have a lot going for myself at the time, so I didn't. I've been mostly a loner, so it was nice to be exposed to a lot of what Messiah had going on. I didn't know that he was a break dancer. I thought that was pretty cool because Messiah was not really the type to be in your face rah rah, but then he would start break dancing and just shock the shit out of everybody. I've seen him do that shit countless times. But it was a really rough go of it, but it was really nice to not have to go through that alone because, my relatives, and you notice how I call them relatives, I don't really call them family. I didn't, family was a foreign concept to me. So to not have to go through that dark time in my life by myself was very key to my survival.
It's pretty the same, Dr. Evil Genius. But you know what? You know what things I do remember, though, besides the breaking, was Snapple bottles being smashed against the George Washington. Drunk people breaking stuff.
And talking about their. Remember, we used to talk about how unnecessarily well sculpted the horses' balls were.
This is Union Square.
Who sculpted that?
We had nothing to do. But
He wants
at
to
the
know
same
if you
time,
did that crazy head spinning thing. Did you do the spinning on your head? I remember you
Yeah,
spinning on your
I was
back.
doing. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I started an experiment with spinning on my head. I was able to do that one time. I was spinning on my head at Thanksgiving dinner one time at a friend's house, and I broke my pinky toe on the table because I was spinning on my head. So
Yeah, good
that's
job.
the answer to that. Yeah, but Jesse can drop this thing, even though all this shit is happening. It's still Trump versus Biden. Jesse can drop the vote out 2020 segment real quick. Drop. Get ready to wait in long ass lines and mail it if you want to vote this year. So pretty much, even though we're trying to do a normal election, but if Jesse plays this video, the places that want to have the presidential debates, they're scared of getting coronavirus at their facilities. So they're like, no, I don't want the presidential debate. I don't care how important it is. I don't want these two old white men in here. So you can play this clip real quick, Jesse.
After the University of Notre Dame withdrew from hosting the Commission on Presidential Debates, announcing a new location for the first 2020 presidential debate. The commission sending a release stating the debate will now take place at Case Western Reserve University, located in Cleveland, Ohio. It's currently scheduled to take place on the Health Education campus on September 29th, while the second presidential debate will happen in Miami on October 15th, and the third will be at Belmont University in Nashville on October 22nd.
So pretty much it's coming soon. It's pretty scary that this decision has to be made soon between Trump and Biden. So that's what's going down soon. It's like the coronavirus plus the elections pretty much. That's just pretty much what's happening. Even the debate schedules.
Yeah, a lot of what we're going to see in these debates are going to have a lot to do with the handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's going to be really interesting because the moderators, depending on which media they're supposedly representing, we don't know which media groups are going to be moderating the debates, but whoever ends up moderating the debates, you're not going to be able to escape the questions about how the COVID-19 pandemic has been handled. So, I find it really interesting that Trump is complaining about his lack of approval ratings. Well, when those questions come out, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to be able to explain the decisions that he made and the things that he chose not to do and the things that he chose to do. So really be very interesting to see how that all pans out.
We see, but we've been here before with Hillary. Everyone, she's winning. She's in it to win it. She's going to win it. And if Jesse plays his clip, this country's pretty racist and crazy, so you never know what might go down in November. So
we still have more than 100 days to this election, but at this point, you're losing.
First of all, I'm not losing because those are fake polls.
It's just over 100 days until the election. This is your 2020 fix.
So
as we head down the home stretch of the election, Joe Biden has a growing and consistent lead in the polls, with recent polls, including one from the Washington Post and ABC News, showing him leading by double digits. Biden appears to have grown his lead in large part because of negative reviews of the president's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Trump faces a deficit that has few comparisons in modern politics, especially
like Biden. We don't like you, but
at the same
we really
time,
hate
there
Trump.
are more than 100 days until the election, and things can change. Here are 4 things to watch out for. Number 1 is a potential Supreme Court vacancy. We learned recently that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg had a recurrence of cancer a few months ago. She says she's doing better and plans to stay on the court for the foreseeable future. But the idea of a vacancy that could push the court even more towards conservatives.
She's going to stay alive just to make sure that they don't put another conservative judge.
In 2018, Republicans thought the treatment of then Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh might help them in the midterm elections. In the end, though, the Democrats actually retook the House. A second thing to watch for as we approach the election is the shift from polls of registered voters to polls of likely voters. This is something that often helps Republicans whose voters are more likely to turn out to vote. The Washington Post ABC News poll showed Biden leading by 15 points overall, but when you focused on voters who were certain to vote in the election, that margin dropped to 11 points. And when you focused on voters who were certain to vote this time and also voted in 2016, the margin was just 7 points. A third thing to watch out for is whether Joe Biden stumbles in the closing weeks of the campaign. Biden has a very demonstrated history of committing gaffes as a candidate and has shown himself to be somewhat unsteady at certain points during this campaign. This campaign will shift in the closing weeks. There will be debates, there will be potentially more person-to-person campaigning, and there will be more scrutiny of both candidates. The fourth thing to watch out for is the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Democrats appear to have built a big advantage when it comes to use of vote by mail, which has been expanding in many states across the country. At the same time, polls show that Republicans are significantly less concerned about the virus, which suggests that Election Day turnout could be more favorable for them than it might otherwise be.
They walk right into that virus. They walk.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting is that I think that we're experiencing a political climate that's the exact opposite. We're talking about the inverse of what happened in 2016, when there were so many people who believed that the person that they thought was a front runner was going to win, when in reality the voters went the opposite way, not necessarily because they loved the other opponent, but because they really hated the person that was supposed to win. And I think that we're seeing that again. So don't be surprised if you see Biden in the White House, or you see Trump trying to steal the election by claiming that the election results are illegitimate. He's already said he's going to try it. So
you saw the local elections. People raided the rain with masks on for hours for whatever crazy conservative person that they were dealing with in their local level. They were like, I want this man or woman to fuck out of the office. I'm going to wait in line for it too. So hopefully that momentum keeps going into the national election, that people wait online, people really, whatever obstacles get thrown into, because, obstacles get thrown into something and we know it's going to make an impact. If it wasn't going to make an impact, it'd be like, you can do a toll-free call-in to vote, whatever, and it would make it super easy. You can, text and vote, do whatever, but they make it as difficult as possible to vote, so obviously it must be important to do. So that's what I feel about voting, even though it still feels like going between a shit sandwich and a shit coated sugar sandwich. It's still better than the shit sandwich, what we have for Trump. So, and at the same time, we have these weird people, these COVID-19 deniers who are roaming the streets, doing all kinds of weird things. But this story is pretty wild to me. Jesse could play this video. What happened to, Pokemon black guy, Herman Cain.
To the point about, we talk about Mr. O'Brien, the national security advisor. Well, Herman Cain, obviously former presidential candidate, now Trump supporter. He was at that Trump rally in Tulsa. There he is, unmasked. He was there, along with everybody else there who didn't wear a mask. He was hospitalized less than 2 weeks later with coronavirus, and he is still there. All right, so we're talking now 25 days. He's 74 years old, same age as President Trump. According to his official Twitter, he's still in the hospital. He's being treated with oxygen for his lungs. Now, his doctors say his other organs and systems are strong, but I think people understand what I'm saying. This is pretty damn serious. 25 days in the hospital. What is his prognosis?
Well, I don't know what his prognosis is because I don't know what his underlying conditions are, how big an inoculum he got, what pre-existings he has. We wish him, of course, all the best. But in general, if you're 74 years old, you don't want to be in the hospital 25 days and on oxygen. You'd rather be someplace else. It's a tragedy that he got the disease in a place that the president was warned against not having a rally like that. That would really be a national tragedy.
Yeah, it would. And I want to remind everybody, we have on video staffers of the president at that rally moving away the markers on the seats that would even have social distancing, because they didn't want social distancing and they didn't want masks. And the press secretary didn't wear a mask. Herman Cain didn't. We don't know if he got it there. He sure could have. 25 days in the hospital on oxygen. Hope that says something to everyone. Thank you very much. Dr.
So there you go. We have, there was a situation in Texas, there was a family, 14 people, one person fucking died, and they were COVID deniers. It was a mass free party. You have the biggest mass free party ever. Yeah, Tucson, Ohio.
Yeah, so when we were actually bringing up the topics to talk about for today's show, because we have somebody in the YouTube chat, Larry Backlund has said it's a fake virus, and I really wanted to bring this up because I know that there's a lot of deniers. In fact, there are less deniers now that Trump has started to wear a mask. More people on the right are now like more amenable to wearing the mask. So I really wanted to focus on this guy,
I
Mr.
saw
Green.
people with Trump mask, Trump 2020.
I've seen people with the Trump mask and stuff. Well, this guy, he thought that the virus was fake. He believed it was a hoax. So he got together a gathering of 10 or so of his family, and then the virus spread to other members of his extended family. And his mother-in-law is now dead, and another one of his family members is on a ventilator in very, very grave condition. And he actually goes and explains how the virus spread throughout his family and how everybody had varying levels of sickness. But while, I think it was that I think his partner had it, and then he was in the hospital room next to the room where his mother was, but never got a chance to say goodbye to her, and did not get a chance to go to the funeral because of his own complications with the virus. So we're starting to see, especially in the South, because this is something that happened right here in Texas. This is a guy that said, I thought that it was a hoax. I did not believe in it. But here's the thing that fucks me up. After he admitted that this is not a hoax, after talking about how he's going to do all of these, we're going to do this family gathering because we don't believe in the virus. He is now on GoFundMe asking for money to pay for his relatives' medical bills for a virus he said didn't exist.
Like, literally, Herman Cain's been in the hospital for 25 days. Like, that wasn't, no one knew about it. No one cared. Trump didn't talk about it. No one, so it shows you how.
I don't know who Herman Cain is. I don't even know who Herman Cain is, so I can't speak on it.
He was a presidential candidate, Republican presidential candidate a few times, and he got the coronavirus at the Tucson, Ohio Republican presidential rally, and he got sick.
Right.
So that goes to Waffle's question, Trump, you heard the news recently that CDC pretty much don't even have real numbers of the national level. So imagine me trying to find numbers for a rally. That's pretty much
it's not a bacteria. It's a virus. Bacteria and virus. And remember that the common cold is not caused by bacteria. The common cold is caused by a different type of coronavirus. So it's not a bacteria. It is a virus. And we're not talking about cold symptoms. We're talking about people who are dying in the hospital. And people don't normally die from the cold unless they have AIDS. But people don't die from the fucking cold. People are dying from COVID-19. And we're talking about people who did not believe in it, who were not forced to believe in it. But wait, before we go there,
no, this is the segment. No, this is the segment to start with. This is the virus, Jesse. Start the virus.
The coronavirus. It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear.
Yes, I just really wanted to get this thought out, because this is really important, right? I've been saying since the beginning of the virus starting to spread in the United States, starting with my city here in New York, where we had bodies piled up in truck trailers, and we were digging mass graves in Central Park and whatever that island is off the coast of the Bronx, right? When they were stacking bodies here, and everybody was talking about, but our dear ecosystem, our economy, oh my God, the economy is so important. Well, if you want to go chase money, you should have to sign a waiver that you are civilly responsible for anybody that you caused to get the virus And if you actually get the virus, while you're saying that it's fake, if you become sick, you should sign away your right to medical care. Because if you don't believe in it, then you should be able to just go out there, and we shouldn't see you show up at the emergency room if you should so happen to come down with it, since you don't believe in it. So you should be sent home if you don't believe in it. So the thing that annoys me the most about this guy is that he's telling us about how he is now a believer in the coronavirus. But he also wants all of us to give him money to pay for the conditions that he created. I'm not with that. I'm not with it. If you don't believe that it's fake, do not ask for medical care and be ready to pay up when you infect somebody else.
So the virus is causing all kinds of different issues, fake issues, like people believing it's a hoax, but this is a real issue what's happening right now. There's a Evictpocalypse that's going to go down in a few days if relief doesn't come to millions of people. This is a real problem. This is not a made-up problem. So if Jesse could play this clip real quick that, I guess reported on recently in Maryland, just to show you the scale. This is everywhere. New York City, Maryland, Baltimore, Texas, California, Tennessee, this is everywhere. So if Jesse could play this clip real quick. Just to show you.
Despite a deadly pandemic, eviction proceedings have resumed in Baltimore, Maryland, where tens of thousands of people, because of government inaction providing support, have been unable to pay their rent and are now facing eviction as COVID-19 spreads uncontrolled, including over 1,100 new cases reported today, July 27th.
Our landlords have got to go! Our landlords have got to go!
We don't belong like this. We don't deserve to live like this. Each and every one of us lives matter. Everybody lives matter. How can we try to stop the homeless and they still can't cancel the rent?
Dozens protested outside of Baltimore District Court in the morning. We spoke to longtime housing organizer Terrell Askew.
The eviction moratorium that was lifted on Saturday, that means that 300,000 people in the state of Maryland are facing eviction.
Larry Hogan has allocated $30 million for the state's rental assistance program, and another $10 million announced Friday for residents of state-owned properties. But that doesn't even begin to pay for most renters.
We want three things. We want $175 million put towards rental and eviction prevention, in keeping with states like Pennsylvania that put that much for their people. We know that our state got $1.3 billion in COVID relief funds, and the Governor Hogan has put $30 million towards that. That's absurd. That's something. I believe that's $56 per family. That won't go anywhere. We also want them to extend and expand the moratorium.
I'm pretty sure the landlord's not going to accept
where no one is getting evicted.
Eviction proceedings have resumed for those facing eviction prior to COVID, those who can't prove hardship due to COVID, or if your landlord is evicting you for a reason other than not paying rent.
Right now we have people getting evicted on trumped-up charges under emergency evictions. We're in the middle of a once-in-a-generation pandemic. Yeah, there's no excuse for people to be getting kicked out of their homes. And then to add to that, we have a homeless population who are living in shelters, and they simply cannot socially distance when they don't have a home. We want them to be removed, all people from those shelters, and to never go back. Shelters is inhuman, it's unconstitutional, it's dishonest to all the people that they say they represent. We want rapid rehousing. These are our fellow citizens. They should be treated with the same dignity that we would expect for ourselves.
For The Real News, this is Jessel Noor with Cameron Granadino.
Human love solidarity. You're a savage for that comment. I'm not going to repeat what you said, but that was really savage.
So Jessel Noor can come on the show as an amazing journalist. We went way back from Democracy Now! We used to work at Democracy Now! We'll cross paths a little bit. Hopefully you can come on the show.
How y'all doing? I'm enjoying your broadcast, guys.
Yeah, I haven't been invited yet, so I'm okay.
Yeah, Evictpocalypse hasn't. Yeah. So tell me, give me a background of the story. Like, who are these people yelling outside of that courthouse?
Yeah, so Maryland, richest state in the country. We have our governor Larry Hogan, who's supposedly the anti-Trump Republican, doing a book tour right now, talking about how he survived the pandemic, and he is a multimillionaire developer. Meanwhile, you have up to 400,000 people that can't pay their rent in the state of Maryland, and rent is due for people. And the state is offering pennies towards what states like Pennsylvania is offering $175 million to help people that can't pay their rent. And meanwhile, Maryland's offering $30 million, and the eviction moratorium is up. And there's folks that haven't even gotten unemployment. They haven't gotten their stimulus checks yet. They're out of work. A lot of those jobs aren't coming back. There's a huge surge in hospitalizations now. I talked to nurses at Johns Hopkins. So Johns Hopkins is leading the international effort to fight COVID. Overnight last week, the number of cases doubled. And a lot of it is young people that have to go out and try to earn money.
So Giselle, you saying that $56 is not going to do it?
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, it's just shameful. Yeah, so the case at Johns Hopkins doubled. They're offering pennies for renters. And a lot of the people getting sick are frontline workers that are going out trying to make money, knowing that the rent's going to be due. So it's a perfect storm because they're saying stay at home. That's where you're going to be safe. And they're kicking people out of their homes right now. So, America number one. Let's do it. It's just disgraceful,
Yeah, it's like I just don't understand why they can't cancel property taxes and home loans or whatever that the landlords are dealing with to take the pressure off of them.
Mortgages.
So they can work. Yeah, the mortgages, so they can work with the tenants. I feel like that's a very simple concept that they've made very complicated. Can you make sense of this? Since I don't know if it can be made sense of.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense. It sort of speaks to the absolute short-sighted, destructive nature of capitalism. You have people getting kicked out of their homes during a pandemic. Do these landlords think they're going to be able to replace those tens of thousands of units?
I've been saying
where are these people going to come from? It's just crazy. And to think about how many billions and trillions of dollars they gave out to all these big corporations. And I mean, I get it. If you're a small-time landlord, you're getting slammed too. But they just want to punish people. They want to blame people for the situation they're in. Obviously they're cutting the $600 a week unemployment. They're going to replace that with something even less. And there's no other country that treats its people this way. And you were talking about the COVID deniers. I was dealing with some of them today online. And it's the same people that don't think that people should be getting unemployment, that think that you should be going out and working right now. But that's literally what we should not be doing. It just doesn't make sense. And I think it's horrible.
I'm gonna play this video quick. Hopefully we can watch this video together. The surrealness of this moment right now as the CARES Act, all these moratorium expires. Pretty much, this is a clip from Texas. This is pretty outrageous.
El Paso tenants at risk of losing their homes amid the pandemic now that a halt on evictions has expired. Good evening, I'm Daniel Marin.
And I'm Natasha Paloma. A cell phone video sent to KTSM showing a local family appearing to be evicted from their apartment this morning. KTSM 9 News reporter Stephanie Shields is live in central El Paso. She spoke to the family.
I'm here at the Jacobs Crossing Apartments off of Gateway South. Now, the family has actually been sitting out here in the sun. They've been watching their belongings because people think that it's actually for sale, but this is their stuff, and they say they have nowhere to put it. Now, they sent us some cell phone footage sent to KTSM. You can see where the eviction appears to be in the process. The tenant, Marcelina Hidalgo, tells me her children have special needs, including a child with autism. Hidalgo says she's been behind on her rent, owing about $3,000 since March due to the challenges because of the pandemic. Across the country, an eviction ban was in place prohibiting renters from evicting tenants due to the pandemic, but that expired on Friday with the exception of federally assisted properties.
And I told him, well, just give me a chance until the 31st, and then I make everything.
Hopefully the internet can find this landlord.
No. And
whoever this landlord, hopefully the internet can figure it out.
And they tell me, like, and right now I'm trying to get my stuff somewhere else. So, I mean, it's hard.
So who's going to rent your apartment
The city of El Paso
now?
issued rental assistance
What money do you think you're
contracts
getting
during
now?
the pandemic. The city sending a statement saying in part, quote, evictions occurring in El Paso are under the jurisdiction of the federal government, the state, and subsequently the county justice of the peace, not the city of El Paso. Evictions for non-federally backed properties are legally taking place right now. Now, I called Empire Properties. They are the property manager of the Jacobs Crossing Apartments, and they said right now they have no comment. Live in Central El Paso, Stephanie Shields, KTSM 9 News.
All right, Stephanie.
So it's like politicians over there, no accountability at all. They're like, oh, I don't know, it's
No
some
comment, no
non-federal
comment.
loophole. Yeah, like not helping this family at all. So that's pretty much unsettling signs of things to come in this country overall. What's going to happen in the next
And these
few
are the
days.
motherfuckers that are asking us for votes. Like, do you not understand that we're talking about possibly 30 million families? We're talking about nearly 30, somewhere, it might be individual people. We're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 million people going to be on the streets. And you're asking these people that you don't give a fuck about for votes. Remember that.
And it's 30 million just renters, right? And you got people that got mortgages due. And I mean, the other thing is, like, I don't understand what the alternative is except to cancel your rent or your mortgage, because it's not like people have been stacking up money to pay all that back rent, right? But to pay that money you owe on your mortgage. Like, where is this? Yeah. Like, literally the money went to the billionaires. That's where the money is right now. They need to be taxing the billionaires, taxing Elon Musk to pay all this money that's owed, because that's where all that money went. It was the biggest transfer of wealth this country's ever seen. And now the bill's coming due, and the working people have to pay. So that's the story of America, right?
Yeah, and at this point, we have a few months has passed, so we can see other models in other countries and how they've operated with way less resources than we do. Providing support for their population when it comes to like staying in place, quarantining, being at home, allowing rents to just pass over. You don't have to pay back the rent. If you're poor, how are you going to pay back the rent 3 months of rent? It's insane. So.
But we're over here celebrating Jeff Bezos making $13 billion in a single day. Somehow that works. We have people complaining about families getting $600 a week. Oh, they're not going to want to go back to work if we give them $600 a week. $600 a week ain't shit. It ain't shit to survive, right? So, like we've been talking about people making living wages. All of this shit is connected. All of it. If you're afraid that the proud American people who are proud of the work that they've been doing and proud of their productivity over the last 40 years, which has increased by over 400% since 1970, but wages have remained stagnant since that time. 50 years of Americans quadrupling their work output, but not quadrupling the money coming back in. But we got to hear about how this one guy made $13 billion in a day and we're supposed to celebrate that? How the fuck can I celebrate that when all my shit is on the sidewalk because my landlord doesn't give a fuck? Explain that one. I'm getting really heated.
So I mean, what you've seen in Baltimore when it comes to like not only this like housing, but like when it comes to small businesses, when it comes to like the neighborhood and communities out here, because the Baltimore, it has a reputation of being the HBO, the Wire. People like have this bad reputation, but at the same time, you go to Baltimore, it's black. It's like black community, black economic. Like how you've seen the past few months that have there been mutual aid stuff happening? People like dropping food off for people. What kind of support has been going on within the community in the past few months?
I mean, It's been really incredible, man. Baltimore is a beautiful city. It's one of the toughest cities in the country, but it's a place where people really come together, and there's a real sense of community here. If they got that small town feel, they've got mutual aid coming through. They've got people coming together, putting pressure on the elected officials to do the right thing, and get laptops out for students, get hotspots out for kids. $13 million. Wow. Yeah. Baltimore was the original segregated city. And so you feel that here, right? Larry Hogan, I mentioned earlier, our governor, he just vetoed one of his big first moves, vetoing mass transit. Moving back here from New York, I was shocked by how little mass transit there is. And that's because of systemic racism. They don't want black people in the city. They don't want people of color in the city getting access to the suburbs, getting access to more opportunities. And so you have a century, more than a century of all these racist policies, the wage gap here, some of the biggest, the income gap here, the life expectancy. You can expect to live 20 years more if you live like 2 blocks down the street. But people have persevered and survived. And a lot of that, the reason there isn't more violence, the reason there isn't more crazy stuff happening here is because people have come together and they know how to survive. And one of the things I've been looking at is worker cooperatives. Where people own the businesses, people are the bosses. And Baltimore is a city that has tons of worker cooperatives, despite getting no support from any big institutions. I think they've gotten like $5,000 from the city. We got Johns Hopkins, we got these big universities. That's it, nothing, right? But they found a way to build wealth and build power. And I think that, those kind of, mutual aid, solidarity movements, that's growing here. Everyone's still waiting for the dust to settle. Cases have spiked recently, but it still really hasn't hit Baltimore. We've been pretty lucky so far. Everyone's just hoping for the best. And, you talk about like stuff like pre-existing conditions. A lot of folks have that, environmental racism. In the middle of the pandemic, the mayor is trying to keep a dirty trash incinerator in a working class black neighborhood. He's trying to get that reopened and get a contract for that extended right now. So there's folks going down there tomorrow to shut it down. There's been a years long push to get.
Shout out to Professor Richard Wolf for worker co-ops. Shout out.
Yeah.
Black Magic. Yeah.
No, it's such a huge movement. There's folks going to shut down the incinerator tomorrow. There's folks that got the city to invest in affordable housing a couple years ago. And so like that is, there is solutions. Baltimore City spends $500 million on police.
$500 million?
Most per capita in the country. That's more than we spend on healthcare, on housing, on schools combined. So there's a big defund the police movement here. And, they're like, this is time right now. We talk about violence. The governor says he cares about violence in Baltimore. He used the excuse of the pandemic to veto $10 million for violence interrupters. That is the most effective way to stop violence. The studies have shown they can shut down violence and shootings by 50% if they are resourced. He vetoed a bill to have some type of justice for the school system here. It's been disinvested since white flight. The state owes the city something like $3 billion. And the courts even ruled that the schools are underfunded. So these movements are here, they're strong, and they're only growing now. And now you have the broader, in a lot of ways, it's a racial issue, but it's a class issue, because even if you're a person of color but in your wealthier neighborhood, you still had access to schools. You're not as policed as you would necessarily, but in some ways the pandemic has opened people's eyes that we're all we're not in the same boat, but we're all susceptible to these same issues. If we don't all take care of each other, we can only insulate ourselves so much. So in that sense, I think it's brought people together. We just elected a mayor who's promised to defund the police and to fund schools, to fund restorative measures in the city. And
what we're talking about Right, but when we're talking about defunding the police, we're not talking about, just for some of the viewers that don't really understand the concept of defund the police, we're not talking about send the police out there to defend themselves and other people with rubber chickens. What we're talking about is the police only getting the funds that are necessary for them to keep the peace, and also take away responsibilities that should not belong to police officers, and then putting funding into the institutions that take pressure off the police to have to do so many jobs that don't really belong to them, and just allow them to do law enforcement duties. So I just want to be sure that for some of the viewers that may not understand what the concept is,
there's a lot
that's what we're talking
There's a lot of propaganda around it.
So they should walk
yeah,
to the
absolutely.
ocean, the Rockaway March that they did.
Service reallocation, exactly. El Cartman.
Yeah. And if you look at, Baltimore has spent something like $5 billion on police in the last 20 years, but they can't stop murders. They don't stop crimes from happening.
They show up later.
Yeah. So I think people are, people bought into that idea that we just, we have this huge gaping hole where society should have been, where resources should have been, where rec centers should have been. But, it's catchier just to say, look, we're going to get tough on crime. We're going to fight the drug war. Martin O'Malley was arresting 100,000 people a year in a city with 600,000 people, clean up the streets. But we're still dealing with the long-term consequences of that, right? You put people in jail.
They're dealing with symptoms, and they're not interested in dealing with the actual causes of these problems.
Yeah, you look at jails. Are they restorative in any way? You give someone a criminal record. They can't get jobs.
They've been taking programs out of the prisons. They've been taking education out of the prisons. They've been taking programs that are designed to help people reacclimate themselves to society for when they get out of prison. Inevitably, they've been taking them out of prisons and jails. So now we're sending people who are angry with no recourse, and we're putting them back on the streets. And this is our, we're tough on crime. See, like, you're just adding to more crime.
Yeah, and the whole eviction crisis feeds into that, because you kick someone out of their home, you don't give them a chance to get a job. What do you expect? You literally are setting up a situation where you're going to have an explosion of violence, and then that's exactly what Trump wants. That's what the police unions want, all the opponents
of makes them fund like profit. Yeah, it makes them look prophetic.
You can't teach a hammer to be a pillow, So that's pretty much what comes to police.
I think
I don't know if I want to lay on a hammer.
I think you guys have been laying it out really well, and I think people are waking up. This crisis has pushed us all to the limit. It's pushed our society to the limit, and all the things that we could just ignore or pretend, we're okay. This employer-based health insurance, even though Democrats haven't come around to it, I think majorities of voters did. So I think people are waking up.
Yeah. So we have one final fun video to show. This is a throwback to Occupy Wall Street. I mean, this was shot before Occupy Wall Street. This is our favorite show. Me and Dr. Virginia's favorite show, Wonder Soldier. If Jesse could drop this clip real quick. Yeah, so this is a throwback. So we can have some giggles, just we know we're on the same page when it comes to who's the real bad guys out there. So play the clip, Jesse. We're in the show tonight. Thanks so much for coming on. Hopefully we can have you again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Noor.
Yeah, thank you guys. That was a pleasure.
Yeah. So
now
we're gonna go to global Earth news.
Yes.
Global Earth news. Global Earth news. Sorry, I was dancing to the beat. Oh, yeah, so that's Global Earth News. So, we're so American-centric. All we care about is America. All we care about what happens here. But we need to see what's going on.
Yeah, because we're number one.
Yeah, we're number one in mass incarceration and gun violence. Number one.
Yay.
Yeah, but south of the border, if Jesse could drop his clip real quick. Even though Mexico has mad problems too, but this president does this symbol. It's kind of cool symbolism, but he still kind of sucks.
On to Mexico now, which continues to push for the sale of its presidential plane, hoping to raise funds amid the pandemic. However, so far the country has not been able to finalize a deal. Our next report gets you the complete story.
Ever since he came into power in late 2019, Lopez Obrador has been adamant on one thing to sell: the presidential plane. The Mexican president has made it clear that he does not want the luxury jet, which he considers an insult to the poor.
Sell it to Donald Trump.
The purpose of holding this press conference with the airliner
I remember they were
is to
selling
make
his
known to
Cadillac
the
on
people of
Craigslist.
Mexico how the country was poorly governed, how there were luxuries in the government throughout the neoliberal period.
The Mexican government has received over 40 offers from buyers, but at the moment it is only considering 2.
What are people doing?
In fact, one of the prospective buyers has even paid $1 million in advance. But there's a catch. The buyer wants to pay half of the amount in cash, raising tax evasion concerns. The plane in question is valued at $130 million.
Hey, Mr. President, we'll buy your jet
It's a
from
Boeing
you,
787 Dreamliner
you know what I'm saying? I gotta
manufactured in
watch this money.
2010. Painted in the colours of the Mexican flag, it is outfitted with a double suite, a boardroom, and even a treadmill. The luxurious plane has been controversial since the time it was purchased. This as Mexico has not even paid the loan amount for the Dreamliner. But Obrador is keeping other options open. Mexico is selling lottery tickets with the plane's image on it to raise
we need a
funds
Van
during the
Hammer in the
pandemic.
Twitch chat. We got some spam.
There are already these possible buyers, and that money, and also what is obtained through the raffle is for public health.
However, the government has managed to sell only 25% of the total tickets. Bureau Report, we are World is One.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine ending up in prison because you tried to buy a plane that the president of the country badly wanted to sell, but you tried to launder money in the process of buying the jet? And they're like, are you fucking stupid? Like, they'll smack you in the face with the handcuffs and then put them on you. Really fucking tight.
That shows you like the amount of money that moves around in this world right now. The money that moves around the world, that shows you perspective. That's how much money moves around. Some rich person is so bold, they're willing to pay half cash in a Mexican presidential plane. Some rich guy, some rich person is so bold to do that. That shows you the money in this country. It's pretty wild. But
what does it say about the Mexican president, though? What does it say about him that he's taking these austerity measures? Do you think that it's one of those things where he's trying to avoid having to deal with the prevalence of the cartels, so he's trying to, give up this symbol of we're trying to do the right thing, or do you think he's actually trying to do the right thing?
I think it's half. It's probably definitely symbolism. It's also, COVID-19. I definitely think it's symbolism. I mean,
nobody's allowing them in their airport, so we might as well get rid of the plane.
Yeah. But speaking of resources, money, Jesse plays this next clip. They have an opposite problem in Kenya. I wish they could sell a presidential plane for this, but this is the problem on the other side of the world, pretty much.
Well, here in Kenya, the country's education sector is facing a crisis as thousands of private schools risk permanent closure. Many are unable to pay workers and teachers and meet their rental obligations. And with the school calendar suspended until 2021, an uncertain future awaits. CGTN's Robert Nagila has that report.
Once filled with sounds of children playing, now silence rings the air at the Little Pools Kindergarten playground in Kenya's capital, Nairobi.
It's sad for me that there are no children here.
The suspension of the school calendar by the government in March to control the spread of COVID-19, Iona tells me, has forced her to temporarily shut down.
Schools operate based on cash flow, and cash flow is based on students. If we don't have students, then there is no way we'll be able to meet our costs.
The school's been able to stay afloat through donations from parents, but with the reopening date pushed from September this year to January next year, tough decisions must be made if it is to survive.
I'm at the point where I am now thinking what to do. Currently, I still have all my staff, but I need to figure out where to pay them from.
The Kenya Private School Association says at least 100 schools have shut their doors permanently, and a majority of Kenya's 11,000 private learning institutions are reeling from the impact of COVID-19.
Carnage.
Is how this education expert describes what private schools are going through at the moment.
It is watching self-sufficient teachers lose their source of livelihood. It is watching school owners get into very debilitating debt.
A situation further compounded by the fact public schools cannot accommodate all the learners.
There are some places that have 44 private schools to the one public school. And so when the schools close, we're looking at about 1 million, 2 million children who may have to join public schools. And there's already overcrowding there. So social distancing is not something we can achieve.
Bailout talks are ongoing with the government, but for many private school owners, they can only hope relief comes in time to keep their doors open. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
So this is an interesting problem in Kenya. Their education system has been privatized so much to the point that those private entities, private organizations, nonprofit can't afford it because the state only has like one school for like 44 schools. This is the kind of situation in some ways that they want in the United States.
No, it's already happening. We're already. The thing is, if you look at a lot of these private institutions, especially the universities, you're already seeing a lot of these universities scrambling for cash. They're trying to shrink their budgets. They're letting go of faculty and staff because a lot of these parents are like, well, if we can't get any in-school, if we can't get any in-person education from these educational institutions, then what the fuck are we paying you all this money for? There's no reason to pay you. So we'll keep our money. If we got to homeschool them, then we'll keep the money at home too. So I think that, of course, you're going to see it in a poorer area, but then you're going to see that happen here.
Yeah, so Kenya shows you kind of the microcosm of that situation that might be in a mutated scale in the United States. It's going to be some monstrous way. But speaking of monstrous, Jesse needs to play this next clip that's going down in Russia. I guess they can do this kind of stuff in Russia. So KFC pretty much is doing this in Russia. So
welcome back. Would you eat your favorite takeaway if it was made in a laboratory? The thought of 3D printed nuggets might not sound appetizing, but scientists say you won't be able to taste the difference.
There's only one Kentucky Fried Chicken, always cooked fresh, with Colonel Sanders' original secret recipe of 11 different herbs and spices.
Oh, that KFC.
Until now. For in this Russian lab, your next tasty KFC meal is being prepared. Just finishing off some seafood for another customer first. This one is a squid. Yes, KFC has partnered with Russian scientists to develop lab-made chicken nuggets.
Shut up and take my money.
No.
Hot on the heels of fake meat, now comes a plethora of pantry palatables.
Spinach, broccoli, chicken, salmon, kind of just runs the gamut. We were experimenting with a lot of new ingredients as well.
Welcome to the future.
Your printable food comes safely packaged in cartridges.
Finger licking good.
I suppose a laboratory and a kitchen. As long as it's clean.
Wouldn't put you off? Simply take some cells from a real chicken.
Look back.
Put them in the lab into a paste and gently place that into a printer, similar to the one in your home office. Turn that paste into sheets and layer upon layer. Turn those sheets into cubes. Presto, you've got chicken nuggets.
I'm going to go get some KFC nuggets.
Stand around a KFC long enough like I did today and you'll learn.
Would you eat them if they were made in a lab? Yeah.
I don't see why not, no.
People aren't put off by it.
Yeah, I would.
If
yeah.
they tasted the same, what's
Yeah,
the difference?
I don't know, you wouldn't be able to tell. Personally, I'd probably prefer it. Well, Joanna, I'm guessing you've never had one of those.
No, I haven't.
Joanna McMillan is a nutritional scientist.
Why are we making food in a lab now?
Well, we have two big problems. One is environmental and sustainability kind of issues. And the second is creating enough meat to feed the world's growing population.
Would there be nutritional value in something that's made in a lab?
Well, no, there's not. And that's what's a little frustrating for me, is why don't we think about recreating meat in the lab, but also make it healthier? And that's what's not happening.
There's no substitute for real chicken.
Adam Stratton is a proud old-fashioned butcher. You remember the ones who used to cut up, not create, meat.
There'd be a difference in texture, the taste, and, like natural. How can you go past natural products?
He won't be finger-licking, and I also suspect an old colonel might be turning in his grave.
Good chicken.
Next, they'll be telling us those yummy crab sticks aren't... Oh, hold on a second.
Whether or not they make it in the lab or not doesn't bother me.
You'd still eat it.
Yeah.
Jesse can pause this.
All right, so I gotta say the obvious. I gotta say the obvious.
Yeah.
Okay. Can anybody try to prove to me that the shit that they've been serving at KFC wasn't already being grown in a fucking lab? Somebody tell me.
Remember, there was like a as a kid, KFC, they changed the name to KFC because it wasn't chicken anymore. Remember that was a joke?
Like, you remember when the New York City Council forbade Taco Bell from calling their seasoned beef because they could not meet the minimum threshold of 40%. They couldn't meet, like, their meat could not hit the threshold of 40% meat.
In a raccoon.
So they were in the third,
teeth.
like, you're calling something that is mostly not meat. Like, you know, I've been saying for more than a decade that none of these fast food joints are serving food. They're serving garbage and fancy packaging. And it's so You want to tell me that you motherfuckers have not been 3D printing trash for the better part of a decade already? Like, you're trying to make me think that all this time you were giving us natural food? Motherfucker, I've been on to you.
Now they're being honest. Now this robot arm is making your fried chicken. You know, they're being honest now. This robot arm is frying that chicken up. It's not grandma. It's not a teenager. It's the Terminator arm. So that's what's going down in the future. So, you know, so we got this final video. It's an old video though, Dr. Virginius, though. It's an old video. So pretty much, I don't know if people remember July 4th, Trump had a celebration. And for some reason, he didn't have the actual artist who made this song. You think the president can have that kind of pull, but he doesn't because he's a loser. And, so you had these white guys and one black lady. If you play it out, it's actually black people here in the crowd. They're the only people in the crowd, pretty much. So Jesse could play this video. Go back video from 24.
Living it up in the city. I got trucks on with Saint Laurent. I gotta kiss myself. It's so fair. Too hot, I am. Call the police and the fireman. Too hot, I am. Make a drag of all your time, man. Too hot, I am. Oh, silly, you who I am. Too hot, I am. My baby's sad about that money, break it down. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. Girls hit you, hallelujah. 'Cause I'm tired.
What kind of nonsense is this? There are black people performing, but for some reason they're not the lead singers. don't know. Real Martian. He's going.
Put some water in it.
That's not. People don't believe he's actually saying. He's just saying.
Hollywood, Jackson, Mississippi. If we show up, we gotta show up. Smoother than a fresh drop. Oh, too hot. I am. Call the police and the fire. It's too hot. I am. It's a bad one at a time. Too hot. I am. Everybody, you know who I am. Too hot. I am. Money, bring it down. Girls, hit you, hallelujah. Girls, hit you, hallelujah.
Right on the horn. Look at that crowd. Look at those chairs. It's packed. It's packed with white chairs. And the only black people.
Yo, Milton is a savage in these comments.
What Milton say?
He said they couldn't get Michael Bolton. He said, "What white nonsense is this?" Brother on the horn. Blink twice if you're being held against your will. We'll come and get you.
Break it down. We're trying to get you all to sing. Hey,
Yo.
okay? You guys know the song, right?
Ain't nobody there. It's so empty, yo. There's more people behind the stage than in front of the stage. Straight up.
Here we go. Uptown, funk you up.
Uptown, funk you up.
Now you sing it.
Uptown, funk you up.
Uptown, funk you up. Ain't no one there. He's trying to hype up like 5 people. He's trying to hype up like the parents of the guy.
There's like 7 people in the crowd. And that fat guy's got bad knees. He's like, I'm not doing none of that shit. He's like, I'm going to take out my cell phone. That makes me exempt from having to dance on this camera.
You want to give people context? Look, there's people enjoying it. Those 3 people, those 5.
Waffle said, you're going to make us sit through the whole thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine you're the audience.
Oh my God.
You know, like, you know. Look at that. Look at those moves. Yo.
All right, I'm gonna say what I know somebody's thinking. Did they have to go to this song because all of the other artists told Trump that they can't use that he can't use their songs in their rallies? So they had to like.
Did they have free food?
They had to go to like, well, this guy's been dead, so he's not gonna like tweet that he doesn't want us to use the song. We'll just use dead people's music from now on.
Bruno Mars is alive.
Yeah, Milton, I'm pretty sure the food is free.
So, there you go. He did it, yeah, it was a clap.
Oh,
I'm
shit.
doing more applause. I'm louder applause in the video. Woo!
Yeah, I'm gonna applaud the fact that we're not listening to that anymore. We're gonna reply to a question, and I think it's a pretty good question because I don't know your feelings on it. From Paula Rock.
Chicken and real chicken?
Paula Rock wants to know our stance on fake meat. Now I'm gonna put the emphasis on fake, so you should already know where I stand. If you're not authentic, I'm not fucking with you. I'm not. Nah, just like if your shit was grown in a petri dish, fuck you and that fucking bullshit you trying to sell me. So, Mr. Rhodes, you tell me, what is your feeling on fake meat?
So this to end the show at the same time. This is no fake meat here. This is real meat, grass-fed, pastures out, grass-fed, hormone-free meat. Out, this is free form meat right here. This is the real thing right here. This is Black Power Magic Hour. We're here
wow,
Tuesday,
that's a whole lot
Thursday
of
at 10. We are the real thing out here. So
motherfucking real deal. Come check us out on Thursday night, 10 p.m. We'll be right back at it.
That's right, Waffles. Fake meat is worse than fake news. It's all terrible.
No, actually, they're all pretty bad. Like I don't know. I have to think about that one. But Thursday, 10 p.m. Be there or be square.
Peace.